Welcome to Esports Odyssey, a podcast dedicated to making esports simpler by breaking it down and learning from the best. On this show, we talk to successful people within the esports ecosystem to see what sets them apart from the rest of us. Today, we've got on the show Noizeeh, with a background in speedrunning, H1Z1, Fortnite, probably a lot of games that I might not even know about or that I'm forgetting, and now today an active competitor in Valorant. Hey Noizeeh.
Hey, what's up?
So how's everything going with your Valorant career today?
Everything is going good. It's going a bit better than I expected. Like, I decided to quit my job and go all in on Valorant, so I'm doing this full time, and
nice.
So far it's going good. I'm very happy with how things are going, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen when the game actually comes out.
Awesome. Happy to hear that. Let's go a little bit further back then, or actually let's go to the very beginning. When you were 7, 8, 9 years old, or whenever it was, what is it that got you into games, and when was that?
I think my earliest gaming memories was when I was around 4. My uncle had a PS1, so I always played like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and those kind of games. But when I was 4, I got a Nintendo 64 from my uncle, and my first game was actually Super Mario 64 on that console, on that system. And ever since then, I've been gaming. Like, later on, I got a PS2, like a PlayStation 2 from my parents. I think I was like 8 or 9 or something. So I always grew up around games. I did other things as well. Like, I did sports, I did basketball, I did skateboarding for many years. But I always had games around me, and it's been part of my entire life, pretty much.
Okay. Did you, when it came to the sports, did you play any of those sort of competitively?
I was always competitive, but I never did them at like a really high level, if that makes sense. Like, I just did sports like any other kid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, got it. So you never went and played in any sort of teams or anything?
No, not really, no. Well, I was playing for like lower teams, if that makes sense, but it never felt serious. Like, it just felt like something to do. Like, it was fun because my friends were doing it as well, but it was never serious at that level.
Got it. Okay. So after your Super Mario days, how did your sort of gaming career progress from there?
You mean like from the earliest days, or
Yeah. What was your earliest game that you sort of really got into?
Well, I started playing World of Warcraft when I was 8. Which is also like I was 8. It was by the end of vanilla, and wow. I put so much time into that game. Like, I played it consistently for like over 8 years. I really enjoyed the game, and I mean, I was 8. I didn't really know English, and I think most of my English skills actually come from World of Warcraft, because I remember when I was 8, I didn't understand anything, but I wanted to play with people in my guild. I wanted to do dungeons. I wanted to raid. I wanted to do all that stuff. So like, as an 8-year-old, like, I kind of forced myself to learn English, and then eventually, like, I got really, really good at it, and I could, communicate with everyone on Ventrilo. I could write, it was amazing. Yep. And I played that game so much. And at this time, I also did the console gaming, like, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, whatever. But mainly I played World of Warcraft, and I played a lot of games on Steam. Like, I never got into like Counter-Strike 1.6, but I played a lot of Source as a kid. I did like bee hopping and surfing and stuff. I never like played it competitively. I played a lot of Team Fortress 2. I love that game so much. Sadly, it's in a bad state, and it just sucks right now. But it's a game that I grew up with, and I really, really enjoyed playing it.
So what got you into from there? What kind of started you off on Twitch, I guess, and sort of streaming? And was that speedrunning? Was that the first thing that you sort of did in the public eye?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I remember I made my Twitch account in 2012, and by the end of the year, I saw Awesome Games Done Quick 2013, and I saw Siglamic do the 120-star speedrun. And Super Mario 64 being one of my first like personally owned games, I thought that I wanted to try it myself. So there's a category in the game where you collect 16 stars and then you finish the game. And I decided to do a stream on the 5th of February 2013. And the plan was to just try to do the speedrunning thing for like a week or two and then never ever do it again and never stream again or anything like that. And I mean, 7 years later, I'm still live on Twitch, so it's been wild.
Do you still do you still do any speedrunning today? Just for fun or once in a while? Or?
No. The last time I did it, I think I did. There was this event this year called Break the Record Live. Maybe you heard about that or saw it. Hosted by ESA. Before that, I did some speedruns just to get back into it because I was commentating over the 120 star speedruns that the big boys were doing. Cheese, Simply, and those guys. But no, like I actively don't do it. I love watching it, but I never really have time to sit down and just do it for fun. Like it never happens. I haven't done it actively since I think 2015.
2015. So what happened in 2015?
I had been speedrunning for about 2.5 years. And I was playing like Super Mario 64 every single day. And at some point, it just gets really old because old games, they don't really get patched. There's not really new things coming out unless someone discovers something new, like a new glitch or a new trick or, a new time saver that saves 2-3 seconds. And it got really stale playing. You try to beat someone else's time, but you're alone and you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And nothing's really different. I really started missing this PvP environment. Instead of just playing as a clock. So I just stopped. I just stopped with the whole speedrunning thing. I wasn't really sure what to do. I started playing more CSGO. I started playing more League of Legends. I was basically trying to find myself in the scene. And then eventually there was the Overwatch beta, I think came out in late 2015. So I played that a lot because, I love Team Fortress 2 so much. And this was a new hero shooter that everyone was excited about. It was Blizzard. World of Warcraft was pretty big, so at that point you could trust them, in my opinion. And I was just waiting for the next big thing to happen. And then during this time as well, I discovered my love for battle royale games. There was this game called The Culling, which was it was a battle royale game. You were 16 people on a map, and the big thing about this game compared to games like H1Z1, Arma 2, 3 is that the game was focused on melee combat, so it was essentially like a rock, paper, scissors system. And I got really, really good at that game, like really, really good. And that's how I found like battle royale games. But the game died after like 3 months, which kind of sucks because the developers did some wrong choices. And then Overwatch came out, and I think that was the start of this whole esports thing. Like I went all in from day one. I played the game so much every single day, bounced from different teams, and I consistently played it for about 1 year. I quit around the time where the Overwatch League was announced, because I think at that point the game kind of started going downhill. But that was my start in esports, day one of Overwatch.
Okay, and then when the Overwatch League was announced that you stopped playing Overwatch, was that also around the time Fortnite was that out yet then?
No, that was the Overwatch League was announced by the end of 2016.
Right.
And I quit in, I think it was December or January. I think it was January 2017. I actually quit to go play H1Z1.
Right.
Because, I enjoyed Battle Royale so much. Overwatch it wasn't going well for me. And I was really enjoying H1Z1 at the time. This was around season 2 or season 3, which is the 2 seasons that people think were the best in H1Z1. And I went all in on that game as well. And I think that was the first time where I actually, let's say, made it in esports, if that makes sense. I think you were there at that DreamHack Winter 2017. It was the $250,000 tournament in H1Z1.
Yeah.
And I got invited to the solo qualifiers and for the teams qualifiers as well. And I qualified for both of the finals. So I think that was my first time like playing in a serious like big LAN environment. And that was the first time where I really felt that this esports thing could really work out for me.
And was that a big challenge for you? Did that feel very different, kind of playing in a big LAN environment? Nerves and all that?
I wasn't nervous at all. The only time where I felt really, really nervous in that LAN was when I felt that we could win our matches. Like, when there's 2 teams left and you're one of those teams and you're just hoping to win the game. That was the only time where I felt nervous, because in the qualifiers, I remember. So basically, you played 2 games in solos and you played 2 games, or I think it was 3 games in solos and 2 games in teams. And the teams qualifiers was the most important one for me, because that was the main game mode at the LAN. In game 1, we lost our game really, really early. We barely got any points. And in game 2, which we knew we needed to win the game, one of our teammates, he jumped into, because in H1Z1 you can drive vehicles, you can jump into cars and stuff like that, and those are mainly used for rotations from circle to circle and stuff like that. And one of my teammates, he jumps into a car and he can't jump out. Because H1Z1 was like a very buggy or glitchy game. There was a lot of issues with the game, but he couldn't jump out of the car. So 3 admins, they go to his PC and they try to do something to get him out, but he couldn't. And then eventually he dies to the toxic gas, and we're 4 people left. All other teams are alive, and we just claw our way back, and eventually we won the game. And the only time I really felt nervous was right before we were about to win that game, because I realized that this is our chance to make it to the finals. But other than that, I don't really feel nerves at LAN. I only really feel nervous or a bit shaky when I know that if everything goes right, we're about to win. That's the only time where I start feeling something, But before that, it's just my screen and the game, and I just really, really enjoy doing it. So I don't really feel nerves. I don't get shaky or anything like that.
Okay. Do you also not feel, a lot of people usually talk about sort of a positive nervousness, sort of a bigger drive to perform in a scenario like that. I personally am like that, where I only play really well when I feel like something's on the line.
Yeah, of course, I feel, I don't know if I could describe it as nervousness, but I feel like it's like a time where you need to perform, and there is extra pressure for sure. But it's like an enjoyable feeling in a way. Like it's nice, it's fun. Like it makes it more enjoyable and more fun to play when there's something on the line and it's so serious.
Yep, no, for sure. Okay, so going from H1Z1, you then went over to play Fortnite, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you played Fortnite for how long?
For 2.5 years, I think.
And the majority of that time you were signed with Method, is that correct?
Yeah, for about 2 years.
Yeah. So how was that? Was that the first professional esports org you were signed with?
We were signed during H1Z1, like for the LAN, we were signed with an org called Myth. I don't think that org is a thing anymore, but we were specifically signed to them just for the event. They covered all expenses, living and stuff like that. But Method was the first serious org that I was signed to, and it's actually kind of funny because before the tournament at DreamHack Winter 2017, there was the closed beta or alpha of Fortnite, where you had to buy the PvE game, Save the World, in order to play the Battle Royale. The game was originally supposed to be buy to play. They never intended it to be free to play. But I bought that and I played some games of Fortnite and I wrote the game off instantly. Like the game was way too easy. It was too childish. It was too cartoony. I was running around dropping 20 kill wins. Because in H1, the goal of the game, like when you're playing alone or just doing climbing the ladder, it's just about getting high kill wins. So I was doing the exact same thing in Fortnite and the game was just way too easy. So I went back to H1 and at DreamHack Winter 2017, I met two of my friends, Martin Creek and I met Silas. And both of them were grinding Fortnite and they told me, they were like, why are you playing H1Z1? Fortnite is going to be the next big thing and you should just play it with us. Like we're really good at the game and you should give it a shot. And I told them, I was like, the game is a joke. Like it's way too easy. I'm going to keep on playing H1. And then after the LAN, the H1Z1 Pro League was announced and the game just started going downhill. Like the game just tanked. And then Martin messaged me on Discord. I think it was December the 5th, 2017. He just messages me and he goes, we have a team, we have one spot left. Are you down to play or what are your plans? And I just told him like, I'm down, let's go all in. And ever since then, I was just grinding Fortnite every day.
Fair enough. And now you're on to Valorant. So you've made a lot of these transitions across your time playing, and obviously, besides the speedrunning, it's all been FPS, right?
Yeah, pretty much. FPS or third-person shooters. It's always been shooters, basically.
But it's still very different games, and to be honest, it's very different skill sets too, right? Fortnite is a very different type of game from Valorant, even just when it comes to the aiming portion of the game. So how do you do it? What do you have? Do you have any kind of secret tricks? Anything that you do when you tackle a new game?
I think I don't know, I just have a very, very competitive mindset. Like, I'm super serious at what I do. Like, I don't really, if I'm gonna play a game, it's kind of rare that I only do it for fun. Like, because I find so much joy in competing and being serious in games and just getting better and, seeing yourself develop and getting better day by day. And whenever I go into a new game, I'm so serious about it. So I just try to find, I try to understand all the mechanics. I try to find all the little things, and I try to learn from every single mistake. Another thing is that I really like watching people are really good at what they do. Like, if I go into H1Z1, for example, when I went in at the start, I was watching really good players such as Storman. At the time, he was just absolutely insane at H1Z1, and I kind of try to mimic stuff that they do, because I think that mimicking really good players is really good, because if they make a play and you realize a situation where you can make that play, and you do it, you first of all, you learn it, you learn why it works and how you should do it, because when you mimic something, you don't really understand why it works, but it also helps you with understanding how the game works. If a pro makes a decision in a situation and you do the same thing, eventually you start understanding why they do it, and then you can you mimic their playstyle, but you also add in your own playstyle and you make everything your own, if that makes sense. So
yep.
You see it in CSGO, you see it in League of Legends. A lot of up-and-coming players, they copy a lot of things that the pros are doing, but they mix in their own style, and that's how they get on top eventually when they try to catch up.
That makes sense. So do you have, other than watching people, do you have any process to, find out new information, find out these little things?
I really like sitting in custom games. Like, for example, in Valorant right now, there's different agents with different abilities and different synergies and stuff like that. There's 3 different maps right now, and I just enjoy, off stream, just in my old time, going into a custom game, trying different characters, trying different spots, just imagining different plays that you can do in my head. And then when it's game time, I just try these things that I thought about and to see if they actually work or not. So I really just enjoy, just going in and finding the little things in games. It doesn't specifically need to be in a custom game. I feel like even if I'm playing ranked, or if I'm playing some games like overall with friends or whatever, in a tournament, it's kind of rare for me to try new things unless I see a potential play that I can make. But if I'm just playing the game, I just really, really like trying new things, even if it's in ranked. That's something that I think that people are too scared to do. They play ranked. They get this ladder anxiety that people talk about, and they just really want to win and they want to play consistent and stuff like that. People are pretty scared to try new things. And I mean, if you see a potential play, I think it's worth to do it, because if it works, you can analyze afterwards why it worked. And if it doesn't work, then you can do the same thing. You just track back and see, okay, it didn't work this time, but maybe if it played out like this, then it would have worked.
We'd like to thank our partners at Elgato, without whom this podcast wouldn't be possible. They provided much of the equipment used for all of our recording sessions. Elgato is the leading provider of hardware and software for content creators, leveraging decades of experience to develop widely accessible products that empower all creators to produce high-quality, professional content. Elgato has provided us with a reliable 4K 60 Pro capture card, professional keylight lighting, and a customizable stream deck, enabling us to pull off pretty much anything we can think of. Head over to elgato.com to see their full product line.
So I think not being scared to try new things, even if there's something on the line, for a lot of people, ranked is pretty serious. That's also a way to go about it, because you grow as a player when you do that.
for sure you do. And this sort of knack for trying out things on your own and sitting in custom lobbies. Do you feel like there is a connection there between your past and speedrunning, where obviously you do a lot of that, right? You always try and figure out the little things of how to break the game. Obviously, a lot of my speedrunner friends have told me in the past, a 1 second time save is usually a huge thing, and it doesn't seem like that to many people.
Yeah, like I have the same mindset as I had when I was speedrunning. Like, I see the tiniest of things, and if it saves me 1 second, or if it does 10 extra damage to another player, it's always worth it in my opinion. I love just finding these tiny things and tiny details, and I definitely have that with me from my speedrunning days for sure.
Okay. And when you started playing your first game competitively, I'm guessing you would probably say that's H1Z1, right? Where you actually played at sort of a pro level?
I played at a really high level in Overwatch as well. I was top 500 every season I played in ranked.
Right.
I played in a lot of different tournaments. So honestly, that was my start with everything.
There you go. So in Overwatch, and maybe this has happened to you across multiple games. Did you when you were playing those games? Did you ever feel like there was a breaking point? A point where it just made click, and suddenly you felt like you were much better at the game than you were before?
I've never felt that, where it's just like one click, just one day everything just falls into place and suddenly you're way better. I feel like it's more of like a progressive journey where you get slightly better every day. At the start, if you have the right mindset, if you don't tilt, and if you have a learner's mindset where you learn from every mistake, and you look at other players, you VOD review, you mimic and stuff like that, you have rapid growth at the start. Like the first couple of months, it's just up. But at some point you plateau, and breaking that level is what I think is kind of hard when it comes to competitive gaming. Because at some point you play so much and you do the same things, you VOD review and you learn it, but you don't feel like you're improving as much as you used to. You feel like things are getting stale, people are catching up to your skill level, people are getting ahead of you. Just breaking that I think that is probably one of the toughest things to do.
And how do you do it?
I mean, you just have to take it one day at a time. VOD reviewing yourself becomes very critical at that point. When you plateau, it's really, really important to just record your own gameplay and go through that at the end of the day. You don't have to go through like 8 hours of gameplay. You can have like 2 games. You can have, okay, this game, it was really, really good. This game was really, really bad. You watch both games, you take notes, you notice these little things that you could be improving, and you just take it day by day. Like as I said, you learn really fast at the start, but when you hit that plateau, like let's say 6 months in or 1 year in, it just slows down. But as long as you keep on doing those things and you really, really focus on improving and learning from yourself and from other players around you, you slowly go up, and eventually it just keeps going up, if that makes sense. But it does slow down at one point, definitely.
And throughout your career, have you ever sort of had a coach on your side?
Not really, honestly. We had some managers when I played on different Overwatch teams where they helped us like book scrims. They recorded our scrims and our games and stuff like that, and they gave us some suggestions. But I never had like a proper coach, if that makes sense. I felt like I've always been that guy, especially when it came to H1, and especially when it came to Fortnite. I was always the IGL. I was always watching VODs and watching other teams. We had this Discord server called Bush Paranoia that we ran. It was me and my team basically before we were signed to Method. And in that Discord, we had like different tiers of custom games, because we got the first custom games in Europe pretty much. So we had like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 1 was only enough teams to fill an entire server. We played like 3 or 4 days a week. We did 4 or 5 games, and I always went through the VODs. I made maps of like where all other teams were landing and stuff like that. I was helping my team with the mentality and stuff like that. I feel like I was always the coach when it comes to stuff like that. I never had like a proper coach that helped us.
Okay. Do you feel like having a coach would help you?
Definitely. I think because it saves you so much time. But also finding the right person that you trust and that understands the game at the same level as you do. That's also kind of hard, I think. But having a coach, it saves you so much time and work. I mean, at that point, you just play and you send your VODs or your reviews to the coach, and the coach goes through it instead. So you save yourself multiple hours during the evening or night, and you also have the coach, doing the scouting work. The coach can come and be like, "This player is really good right now. His playstyle is similar to yours. You should learn from him." Or I saw this tournament. This is the new meta. You guys should be trying this. You don't. Of course, you need to do this sort of research yourself. I do that even if I would have a coach. But it saves so much time. To have someone from the outside actually looking into the game.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, not having to review your own VODs and having someone that can do that for you, for instance, right? That especially saves you a lot of time, I imagine.
Yeah.
So let's go a little bit over your career again, or back to your career rather. At which point during your entire sort of playing career did you know that you wanted to pursue something like this professionally?
Honestly, it was during my speedrunning days. Like I did the Super Mario thing since February 2013, and my goal was the first 2 weeks were just to try it out. The plan was, like I said, to never do it again, but it turned into something so much bigger, and I just kept playing the game daily. I started on an emulator, then I moved to a Wii, and the main thing that people play on in that community is the Nintendo 64, so I eventually got that. And when you get a Nintendo 64 and you start speedrunning on that, when it comes to Super Mario 64, it becomes like next level. Like that's when you actually start taking the game serious. And I wanted to be one of the best players in the world. And I wanted to really, really grow my stream because it became something so much bigger than that. And I guess the real break was when I started focusing on 120 star, which is the most competitive category in that game. You collect all the stars. It's essentially 100%. And I started grinding that, and it was really rough. But I kept at it, and I think during the summer of 2014, I averaged like 500 to 1,000 viewers every single stream. And by the end of by the start of 2015, I was top 5 in the world when it comes to 120 star. So yeah, I think that was my first break where I really, really noticed that doing this competitively, at a high level, is something that I want to do for a long time. And it was around the time where I became, I think it was top 6 or top 5, I don't know, somewhere around there. That was towards the end of my speedrunning days. Towards the beginning, mid 2015, that's when I quit, and I got my top 5, top 6 time at the start of 2015. So that was towards the end. And after that, I was just looking for the next thing to do. I was just trying to find myself. And the next thing was, in this case, Overwatch, which came out a year later after I quit.
Got it. And throughout your whole career so far, what would you say has been the biggest challenge for you, kind of making it in the industry?
I think it's one of the hardest things is just getting at a skill level where other players respect you. Getting on a really good team and finding the right teammates, it's actually a really big challenge. I think that's one of the absolute hardest things to do. When it came to H1Z1, I bounced between multiple teams before I found my team for the $250,000 LAN. In Overwatch, I had multiple teams, but it always ended up with somebody leaving the team, somebody getting poached for another team. Bad results leading to people wanting to just completely split. I think it's just really hard to become that respectable player where good players actually want to play with you. I think that's one of the biggest struggles when it comes to team games.
Yep, that makes sense. And I guess I guess that's a good segue actually to my next question, which is for a team, you personally, what do you bring to the table? Like, what's your key value that you bring to a team?
I think it's my general mindset and how naturally I take on an in-game leader role. I don't think I'm going to be in-game leading in a game like Valorant if I play on different teams. I'm gonna leave that to the people who've been playing Counter-Strike and been doing it for many, many years. But I think it's just my mental attitude. Like, I never tilt when I play with the team that I play in. I'm always so positive. I always push everybody to the next level, if that makes sense. If anyone is having a rough game, I make sure that they still bring some sort of value. And I just think it's overall my work ethic as well. You know, during my Fortnite days, you know, I was the one doing all the VOD reviewing. I was the one scouting all the other teams and, you know, figuring everything out for our team so we could perform on top. I think that those are the main things that I bring to a team. And of course, like, I think my own skill is at a very good point because I put so much time into what I do and I really think about what I do. It's like a really broad question. I would say I don't really have like one key thing that I bring to a team. I'm more of like an all-around player, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I work very, very hard for the teams that I play in, and I make sure that everybody is at like a mental state where they can perform their best.
I think that's a good answer. You know, I think it's very important for a team to, and I think it's hard for a lot of people that haven't played at a professional level to see that, but it's obviously very important to have these little things that bring you an edge over other teams, right? And obviously being in a position where you know where all of your enemy teams land and things like that, having that key piece of information before the match rather than just in the match. That's, I think, one of those things that can give you a huge edge.
Definitely.
Yeah. I guess I've kind of tried to dig into this a little bit, but what for you personally? What has been, if you can pinpoint one thing that has been the absolute biggest hurdle for you, the biggest thing to overcome to be where you are today, do you have anything in mind there?
I actually do. So during this entire time when I was speedrunning, playing Overwatch, Fortnite, H1, I was always working or going to school, and balancing professional play with work or school is insanely hard. Like, you know, I was going to school for 8 hours a day, or I was working for 8 hours a day, and then you get home and you need to play for, you know, 8 to 12 hours a day as well. So overcoming that obstacle, and, you know, it comes with negative things, such as I was cutting a lot of sleep, I wasn't sleeping enough every night, and just balancing both of them, you know, especially when it comes to school. Because I remember when I got home from school, there was always some things that I always had to do. You know, there was an exam next week, there was homework, there was preparations, and, you know, at the same time I had to game. So most of the things that happened was that I did all my schoolwork during the night, and I just cut sleep as much as I could. And it was really, really rough. And I remember at one point, for the H1Z1 LAN, the $250,000 LAN, I was working at the time full time, and a month before, we got invited to a practice server with all the invited teams and players for the DreamHack tournament. And this server was only open during American hours. So I basically had to completely flip my sleep schedule in order to practice for the tournament. So my schedule was something like, I woke up at 7 a.m. I got to work at 8. I got at home around 6 p.m. I instantly went to bed. I woke up at midnight, played the practice server to 5 a.m., slept for 2 hours, and then I repeated that for a month. It was terrible. And, you know, managing those things while you're professionally gaming, it's really, really rough. And I'm really, really happy to do this Valorant thing full time now instead. It's just so nice to put all my energy and time into one thing instead of having to balance two things.
That makes a lot of sense. So what about, you know, I guess you're still balancing two things in a way, right? Since you're still streaming at the same time as you're playing. And I know that a lot of players a lot of pro players don't actually like streaming their gameplay. You know, they don't want to give away little things like that. A lot of people find it distracting. How do you see that?
I know what other pros mean. Like I'm not a big fan of streaming tournaments or scrims or something like that. But if I learned in Fortnite that numbers are a massive thing, like your social media presence and your numbers on Twitch, your numbers on YouTube, your social outreach and stuff like that. And you know, at the start of Fortnite, I remember when we signed to Method, Sko, he told me that, you know, I should be streaming way more and I should be doing content. And I told him, like, I don't want to do it because I want to focus on being the best that I possibly can and, you know, win all these tournaments coming up. And I actually regret not streaming my tournaments, my scrims and all that because, you know, you can't be a pro forever. And
Yep.
you know, most orgs nowadays, they really, really care about your numbers. And I know if I would have streamed from day one Fortnite, if I did as much as I do now, it would have been completely different for me. And I would have probably been in a better spot going into Valorant than I am now. But, you know, I'm super thankful for everything right now. And for sure, I'm not a big fan of streaming like scrims and tournaments and stuff because I really don't enjoy giving stuff away. But at the same time, I don't mind because, you know, as I said, numbers are a big thing and I really, really enjoy streaming. I mean, I've been doing it for 7 years now and it's just such an enjoyable thing to do.
That makes sense.
But in an ideal world, you know, if I could go around with not streaming and only doing this pro play thing, I would. But knowing how things are right now, it's just not viable.
I mean, it sort of makes sense, right? I mean, the streaming portion of your career is important in building you as a personality, right? And as a professional player, you need to be more than just a good player, right? You need to be sellable to sponsors, essentially, right? You need to be someone that people care about. So, I think you're lucky in that you are so used to it and that you actually enjoy doing it, because I think a lot of other players probably feel forced a little bit.
Yeah, I know some orgs they're having in their contracts that you need to stream for X amount of hours every month. And you know, if you're only doing this pro thing and you get forced into doing it, it becomes like a chore. You know, it becomes really annoying. But I guess it makes sense. What you're saying is that I'm kind of lucky that I've been doing it for so long because it just comes naturally to me. Like it's just another day, you know, it's normal for me to hit the start streaming button.
Makes sense. So let's go a little bit, you know, we're obviously trying to find out what makes you successful and what has made you successful. And I think our listeners especially want to figure out how to replicate some of that, right?
Yeah.
So during your time, I know I've asked about a coach, but do you feel that you've ever had a mentor of any kind, someone that's given you advice throughout your career? And if so, would you be willing to share some of that advice?
Well, I don't think I've ever had like a proper mentor, if that makes sense. But you know, when H1 was declining, and I talked with Martin and Silas at DreamHack Winter 2017. When Martin hit me up on Discord, like I've always had like I knew Martin Creek from Overwatch. Like that was my first connection with him. He used to play Hearthstone for SK Gaming. But he played a bit of Overwatch, and that's how I got to know him, and we played a bit together. But our real friendship started around the time where we started talking Fortnite, and you know, he was part of our main team at the start of Fortnite. You played squads. We did squads for about 6 months. We grinded every day, and we were one of the absolute best teams in Europe. Like if you talk to any player that actively competed during the first 6 months of the game, they will talk about Greasy Boys, which was our name because we landed at Greasy Grove every time. That place doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. But later on, if you just talk to someone and mention the Method Squad, like people will tell you that we were one of the absolute best teams in Europe. And at that time, we just did it straight out of passion. You know, there was no prize pools, there was no prize money. It was just prestige at that point. And during this entire time, you know, we played with Martin, but eventually we we changed Martin for another player, but Martin was still a core of the team. He was signed to Method, and he turned into, I guess, a more of like a managerial role and also a coaching role. Like he helped me with so much throughout my career. Both mental advice. Later on when Epic Games announced solos and duos, when we stopped squatting with each other, he gave me advice with, what to think about when it comes to new teammates and what I should be doing with my career. And then Silas also helped me so much when it comes to contracts and finding, the right org and the right home to stay with. He's always helped me with that kind of stuff and what to really think about when reaching out in different social medias. What to think about when I'm streaming, what to think about when I'm tweeting, when I'm contacting different companies, or when I get different emails. I think Martin Creek and Silas have played a big part when it comes to just helping me out throughout my career ever since I started playing Fortnite. But I don't think I really have like specific advice. I'm just trying to think, because it's such a broad question again. I'm just trying to pinpoint exactly what specific things that they've told me about that have helped me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a broad question because I think if there's something that has stood out to you in your career, then that would instantly pop out to you in your mind, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But if there isn't anything specific that has stood out to you that other people have told you, then maybe you have a couple of pieces of advice. Let's make it 3, if you can come up with 3 that you would give to other people when it comes to improving their gameplay, or maybe just generally when it comes to becoming a pro player.
So one thing that I always talk about with my teammates, or when I'm playing with someone new, or just discussing esports and the game overall, like this is outside of playing, is that I tell people that 50% of the game is your own mentality. Like if you go into a match thinking you're going to lose, you're most likely going to lose the game. Or if you start tilting, or if mid-game, someone makes a weird play and you're like, nah, it's GG, we lost the game, It's not over until you see victory or defeat on your screen. Until that text pops up, there's still always a chance. And, my mindset is 50% of the game, in my opinion. If you have the right mindset and you are confident in yourself, you can do a lot of things that you don't think you can do, if that makes sense, Yep. I've done a lot. I actually studied psychology for 6 months, and I love reading about psychology and stuff, especially when it comes to sports, because you can apply so much of that into competitive gaming. And I know that, if you're not confident in what you're doing, it leads to different feelings, such as you get frustrated, you feel scared. And if you're scared going into a match, especially into a tournament or a game where when there's big stakes on the line, you're going to play differently. And when you're scared, we as human beings, we get tilted if things don't go our way, and we get frustrated overall. And as soon as you get frustrated, or as soon as you get tilted, it affects your mental game, and you're not playing the same game as if you were feeling confident. So I think the mind and the brain it's 50% of the game. Honestly, you can be the best mechanically skilled player in the game. You can be frag the hardest. You can have the best aim, but if your mind is not with you, you're not gonna make it anywhere. I think that is one of the main things that I always talk about. I know we were supposed to make like a top 3, but I think that your mindset and how you think in and out of the game it's so important, honestly. And then I guess the second thing we can take is that if you really, really want to compete at the highest level and you want to do it as a pro, you need to take most of the things you do serious. Like there's no point in trolling and throwing games and wasting time by doing other things. Some people, it's fine. I do this myself. I like playing with my friends and just having fun games. But as soon as you go into a ranked game mode, or as soon as you scrim against other teams or play in a tournament, at that point, you should take it very, very serious, and you shouldn't do plays or do things in game that you consider fun. You should do it because things work, and that is how things are supposed to be done. So taking things very, very serious when it matters is I guess number 2. And number 3 is be consistent with what you do. I think if you actually want to compete at a really high level, even if you want to improve, just let's say you don't want to be a pro, but you want to be an above average player, and you just want to feel like you're better than others at a game, and you want to climb like a ranked ladder. Having some sort of consistent schedule where you do the same things every day helps so much. Sleeping right, eating right is part of the game as well. And also, you don't need 8 to 12 hours a day to improve and get better at a game. I mean, if you have 4 hours, as long as you use that time effectively, you can really get good at a game. You might not make it to a professional level, but you can get really, really good.
So for the players that maybe don't have any ambitions of being pro, but just want to be really good at a game, how would you? What's kind of the one thing that you feel they should keep in mind or should do?
I just go back to the mindset thing, honestly. If you're just playing for fun, but you want to improve at the same time, as long as you have the right mindset where you don't tilt, you learn from every mistake, and whenever you want, if you're playing for fun, you're most likely also watching a lot of streams, because if you play 1 or 2 games, you have your personalities and you have good players that you enjoy watching. Just taking small notes from their streams, if they make a play or if they do a small move, maybe in your next game you can try that out and just have a learner's mindset. I think that is one of the biggest things. You can have a lot of fun, you can mess around with your friends, but if you learn from everything you do and you have a learner's mindset from the start, you can improve so much even as a casual player.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What about game specific? Do you obviously we're all excited about Valorant. A lot of people are getting into it. A lot of people are going to get into it. Obviously, it's still in closed beta right now, even though that's easy to forget. And is there any game specific advice for the Valorant players out there that you can give?
I feel like a lot of people compare the game a lot to Overwatch, right? Because the game has abilities. Some of them are very similar to Overwatch, but the main thing about Valorant compared to Overwatch is the main focus of the game is on the gunplay. You use your abilities as utility, and I feel like a lot of people focus too much on using their abilities right now instead of just focusing on actually shooting the enemies or the opponents. Because as I said, the big focus is on the gunplay, and if somebody comes from an Overwatch background, they're going to focus on the abilities, and they're going to run around with smokes in their hands, with Molotovs in their hands, and then suddenly they just die because they're not shooting back, if that makes sense. So I think focusing on the gunplay and the aim at the start and trying to understand different timings, how angles work, how peeking is, when you have the peeker's advantage, when you don't, when you should be pushing, when you should be defending, when you should rotate from one side to another, just understanding the gunplay and the actual game. I think that is crucial at the start, and just using your abilities when you think that the situation is right for it, but prioritizing your gun.
There's this unwritten rule that every Counter-Strike player knows, where you should never ever use a grenade if you're in a one-on-one. And I think that applies here too.
Pretty much. I mean, as long as if you get caught with a grenade in your hand when your opponent has a rifle up, you're dead 10 out of 10 times. So
yep, for sure. Okay. No, I think that's very good advice. And I think it's always weird to see this comparison to Overwatch. I don't personally see much of the similarity with Overwatch. To me, it's really Counter-Strike.
Yeah, same. I just think the art style, like a lot of people compare that to Overwatch, but I think the art style is more comparable to Team Fortress 2 actually, because I know that one of the main art directors from TF2, he worked on the art and everything for this game. So if you look at Team Fortress 2 and then you go back to Valorant, like there's so many similarities. It's actually insane.
That makes sense. I mean, it's also the art style. What I like about the art style, and I think you sort of had this in Team Fortress 2 as well, is that the characters stand out a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have
then-
they have an outline and the details of the characters. You know, it's 2020. There will be some details, but they didn't focus on making them a lot like very detailed, because their mindset is that, you know, when action is going on and people are moving, you don't really see the small details. So it's very simple, and I really really like it.
Yeah. No, me too. Let's go back to you a little bit though. There's one big question that I have for you, which is, what would you say is your biggest achievement to date?
Oh wow, uh, that was pretty. I don't know. I actually don't know. Like I consider myself playing in the solo finals and teams finals of the $250,000 LAN was pretty big. Getting signed to Method was actually a really really big thing for me, because that was my first proper org, if that makes sense. It was my first home, and I played with them for over 2 years. So I think that was a massive achievement. Playing at TwitchCon 2018 in San Jose was massive for me, because I had never been to America. It was my first time there. It was absolutely insane. That was really, really fun. I played at IAM Katowice 2019 in Poland as well. I did pretty good in that, both in the solos and in the duos. I finished top 15 in both, I think, which is pretty insane. What else? I played at DreamHack Tours. It was kind of close to Paris. That was my first time competing in another country. It was my first time flying. That was in 2018. Pretty insane. So I don't really have like one big thing that stands out. It's more of, you know, multiple things.
And what about the future? What is something that you really want to achieve? What's your big dream?
I just want to keep on doing this full time, to be honest. Like right now, I'm really, really focusing on myself and getting as good as I possibly can while growing my stream. So I'm hoping that the stream keeps growing and that things go good in that sense. But the ultimate goal is to play Valorant at a professional level again, and you know, find a new home to get signed to and just compete, because that's what I really, really love doing, and I really wish that I can do that full time too.
So is that to you? Is that the next step then? Getting signed by an org, finding a team to consistently play with.
Finding a team, practicing a lot. You know, catching up to all the good Counter-Strike players, because they have a massive edge right now. Most of the best teams in the world are, you know, they are Counter-Strike players. And if they're not all Counter-Strike players, they have at least 2 or 3 players who have a Counter-Strike background. And catching up to them is the biggest challenge in Valorant right now. But yeah, the ultimate goal right now is to find a team, find a new home, and then just keep doing this full time.
Okay, I think that's a pretty clear goal, pretty clear path forward.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you, and then I have a couple of fun questions that we like to ask everyone towards the end of every episode. But my last question for you personally is actually regarding your sort of routines and habits. Do you have any kind of routine when you go into a tournament, before a tournament, or even before a match?
Not really. Like if I know that I have a tournament, I just I like going outside before. You know, getting fresh air is really really nice, and then I just make sure that I have a full glass of water next to me. Other than that, I don't really have a big routine. I just, you know, if it's a really big game, if it's an important round or something like that, I just take a couple of deep breaths, and that does the work for me.
Okay, very very simple, very straightforward. Good advice to stay hydrated, for sure.
Definitely, like having a glass of water. You know, if you die mid round or if there's a small break, just having that glass of water, man, it's really really nice.
Yeah, it also helps with nervousness, actually.
Yeah. Definitely.
If you do get nervous. Okay, so let's move into the fun questions. One of them, and this one's particularly relevant for you because obviously you have played solo. You know, you have played Fortnite solos as well. You have played in teams. So if you had the choice, if there was a genie in a bottle in front of you right now and you had this wish to choose from, would you rather win 10,000 euros solo as a solo player or 50,000 euros as a team, given that, you still get the same share?
50,000 euros as a team, 100%, because winning with the team is so much better than winning alone. We recently won the G2 Esports Invitational in Valorant. So it was a prize pool of 10,000 euros and we got 2,000 euros each. And just winning with the team, that winning feeling, having, everyone, we went in the grand finals. It was a best of 3. Valorant is played first to 13 rounds, and first game it was an overtime that we lost, so we were 0-1. Second game I think was 13-11 to us, and last game was also an overtime game where we won. And overtime in Valorant, it's only one round, and going through that grand finals, it went on for like 2.5 hours of nonstop gaming, and keeping our mindset up and hyping each other up when things aren't looking that great, because we had to do some insane comebacks. I mean, losing game 1 in overtime and then being down a couple of rounds towards the end of game 2, it got us a bit mentally, but we all just kept hyping each other up, and we wanted to win so much more than the enemy team. And then when we won, hearing everyone pop off, everyone screaming, everyone being hyped, it's a completely different feeling than winning alone. So that 100%, I would rather win as win money as a team, or just win as the team, than winning alone. It's so much better, and it's, I don't know, I get so happy by just winning with others, to be honest.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a very different atmosphere.
Definitely, because you work so hard to get it with others. It's not only you; it's everyone else. Yep,
for sure. And my last question for you is, if you were given one tweet that's guaranteed to go viral, what would you post?
Putting me on the spot. I've never thought about this ever. That's a good one, man. That's a good one. I have actually no clue. Can I ask you the same question? What would you do? Honestly, what would you tweet, Phil? Tell me.
I'm the one asking the questions here.
Damn, dude. Wow. I have no clue, man. I actually have no idea. I never thought about this in my entire life.
All right, let's talk through it a little bit, okay? So you have the option to make a statement, right? A political one, a religious one, if you want to, an ideological one, something serious. You have the option to put yourself out there, become famous in a way, for even if just for 5 minutes. You have the option to meme, as I probably would, to be honest.
I think a meme tweet would probably be the best thing to do. I think, because I don't know, I don't like being political or religious or anything like that in social media. So I'm more of the meme person, if that makes sense. So I'm more on the same line as you. But what kind of meme? I actually have no clue. I think it would have to do with. I actually don't know exactly what I would go with, but it would be more like, it would be like a meme or like a funny tweet in a way. 100%. But exactly what, I can't, man. I actually have no clue what I would tweet. I think I would need to decide that in the heat of the moment, to be honest.
Fair enough. I mean, the fact that you chose the meme, that says a lot about you as a person, and probably me. True. We're given that one chance to change the world, and we use it to meme, which maybe changes the world. I mean, memes have a positive influence on many people. So
I just think that like a social or like political tweet would help that much, to be honest. Like, it would maybe help for like a day. But, if anything, maybe tweeting something about donating to a charity or something could work too. If there's something going on, if there's something really, really bad going on. I mean, right now we have the COVID situation, right? If you could do something that could change everything, if a tweet goes viral, that means that it has like a reach of millions of people, right? Yep. And if you can change other people's lives through a tweet, then 100% I would do that too.
That makes sense.
But I don't know how much text, can I actually change the world, if that makes sense. Because I mean, a tweet has limited characters too. So.
Exactly. There's definitely limited use. And when you make a million people laugh or smile because you made a meme that went viral, you've probably changed millions of people's lives too, at least for a moment.
Definitely.
So I want to give you the floor for a minute before we wrap things up. If there's anything that you want to say to the audience, anything that we didn't bring up, and obviously, share your socials. Where can people find you and all of that stuff. Please go ahead.
All right. So first of all, I'm super thankful to be on this podcast. I've actually never done anything like this before. I've been interviewed in the past, but I've never had like a sit down, if that makes sense, on an actual podcast. Most of it has been in real life at events. So this has been actually a really cool experience. It would be fun to do in the future as well. I actually really like talking about esports, balling with ideas back and forth. I think we had a really good talk throughout this entire session. And
Agreed.
Hopefully the listeners find some value out of this, and they find some new ideas, both from my story and also from all the questions that you asked and your input on everything. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I stream every single day almost at twitch.tv/Noizeeh. And if anybody wants to be updated with what I do, they can always find me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle right now is @methodnoizeeh. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Esports Odyssey. If you enjoyed this episode, you can follow Challenge Mode on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, where we announce all new episodes and share podcast-related news. You'll find all of our socials in the show notes. Feel free to email us at podcast@challengeabout.com if you have any questions from this or any other episodes, or if you would like to learn more about Challenge Mode and what we do.